Hello, happy Yom HaKippurim, YouTube, everybody. This is Yirmiyahu Weeps. I hope everyone is doing really good. Happy Yom HaKippurim, commonly known as Yom Kippur. Okay, I am going to start off by reading some verses. Well, let me start off this way. Yom HaKippurim, from my understanding, means Day of Coverings. Okay? And I will get into what that is and what it means in a little bit. But I am starting off reading some scriptures. So I'm going to start off with Shemot, chapter 34, verse 22. That's Exodus, chapter 34, verse 22. You must observe the Feast of Weeks, the first fruits of the harvest of wheat, and the Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year. Okay, the first fruits, Feast of Weeks, that's in spring. So that's, for this year, that's already done. But the Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm going to get into that in a little bit too. Okay. Shemot, chapter 30, verse 10. Aaron, is to make covering on the horns of the altar once in the year with some of the blood of the sin offering for the covering. Once in the year he is to make covering on it throughout your generations. It is most separate, set apart to Yahweh. Okay, and then going on is Wayikra or Leviticus chapter 16. This is kind of in depth, so I'm just going to start reading. Yahweh spoke to Moshe after the death of Aharon's two sons. That's Moshe or Moses, and Aharon is Aaron. When they approached the presence of Yahweh and died, that was Nadab and Abihu, I believe. Nadab and Abihu. And they did something they were not supposed to do. I'm not going to get into that right now. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe. Tell Aharon your brother that he must not enter at any time into the separate place inside the veil canopy in front of the covering plate that is on the it's the ark, but that's not a very good. Let me look at that really quick. Oh, I should have pulled that up. I'm sorry. Well, let me go to it. It's commonly called the ark, but I think that's kind of a misleading term. That can mean a variety of things, saying the ark. You know, people think of Noah's ark. So I'm going to try to locate exactly what that term is, so that I'm not being confusing, even though most people probably know what I'm talking about, but I like to be accurate. Ark. Oh no, that's like I said, Noah's boat and Moses' basket is a tebah. So let me see. The ark. Sorry about this. Aron. It's a chest. Like a box or a chest, a container, okay? But it's the most separate container because it's holding the 10 orders, the 10 commandments, the very character of Yahweh. Okay, tell Aharon, your brother, that he must not enter at any time into the most separate place inside the veil canopy in front of the covering plate that is on the container, so that he may not die. For I will appear in the cloud over the covering plate. In this way Aharon is to enter the sanctuary with a young bull for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering. He must put on a separate linen tunic. Linen leggings are to cover his body, and he is to wrap himself with a linen sash and wrap his head with a linen turban. So all covered in linen. They are separate garments, so he must bathe his body in water and put them on. So he's got to bathe first. He's got to get himself all cleaned up. He must also take 2 male goats from the congregation of the Israelites for a sin offering and 1 ram for a burnt offering. That sin offering is the offering for having missed the mark, for having strayed. Then Aharon is to present the miss the mark offering bull, which is for himself, and is to make covering on behalf of himself and his household. He must then take the 2 goats and stand them before Yahweh at the entrance of the meeting tent. And Aharon is to cast lots over the 2 goats, 1 lot for Yahweh and 1 lot for Azazel. And that Azazel is very interesting. Let me see if I can find that really quick. 16:18. 16:18. Sorry, I'm a little scattered. I haven't been feeling so great. Come on. Oh. Azazel means El strengthens, and El referring to Elohim, which just means the ultimate powerful authority, when it's referring to Yahweh anyways. And possibly it's a metaphorical sense of impudent, meaning strengthened against someone, to mean impudent to El. So impudent to Elohim, strengthened against Elohim, the most powerful authority. Goat of departure, meaning dismissal or entire or complete removal. The she-goat of going away. So there's several possible meanings of the term Azazel, but it can either mean El strengthens or impudent to El, or the goat of departure or dismissal or complete removal, or the she-goat of going away. Okay, going back. Where was I? Aharon, this is Wayikra to Leviticus chapter 16, verse 9. Aharon must then present the goat which has been designated by lot for Yahweh, and he is to make a straying offering, a missing the mark offering. But the goat which has been designated by lot for Azazel is to be stood alive before Yahweh to make atonement on it by sending it away to Azazel into the wilderness. So basically, complete removal. Aharon is to present the sin offering bull, which is for himself, and he is to make atonement on behalf of himself and his household. He is to make covering on behalf of himself and his household. Oh, and just to let you know, I'm going to have more after these scriptures. I'm going to go into depth in this. So bear with me if you're like, oh my gosh, I can read this myself. Bear with me. Okay, 16 verse 11. He is to slaughter the, I'm going to look that up really quick. No, I've got it right here. Sin, sin, sin. What does sin mean? Sin is to miss the mark or goal. So, where was I? Aharon is to present the missing the mark offering bull, which is for himself, and he is to make covering on behalf of himself and his household. This is 16:11. I might have backtracked. He is to slaughter the missing the mark offering bull, which is for himself, and take a censer full of coals of fire from the altar before Yahweh, and a full double handful of finely ground fragrant incense, and bring them inside the veil canopy. He must then put the incense on the fire before Yahweh, and the cloud of incense will cover the covering plate which is above the container of the testimony, and that testimony being the 10 instructions, the 10 orders, the 10 commandments, so that he will not die. Then he is to take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger on the eastern face of the covering plate, and in front of the covering plate he is to sprinkle some of the blood 7 times with his finger. He must then slaughter the missing the mark offering goat, which is for the people. He is to bring its blood inside the veil canopy, and he is to do with its blood just as he did to the blood of the bull. He is to sprinkle it on the covering plate and in front of the covering plate. So thus he is to do for the meeting tent which resides with them in the midst of their impurities. Nobody is to be in the meeting tent when he enters to make covering in the separate place until he goes out, and he has made covering on his behalf, on behalf of his household, and on behalf of the whole assembly of Yisrael. Then he is to go out to the altar which is before Yahweh and make covering for it. He is to take some of the blood of the bull and some of the blood of the goat, and put it all around on the horns of the altar. And the horns of the altar is because it was a square, the top of it was square, and there were kind of curved horns, kind of like that, at the 4 corners. That's why it says the horns of the altar. Then he is to sprinkle on it some of the blood with his finger 7 times, and cleanse and consecrate it from the impurities of the Israelites. When he is finished purifying the separate place, the meeting tent, and the altar, he is to present the live goat. Aharon is to lay his 2 hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wrongs, the missing the mark, of the Israelites, all the ways that they've been wrong, they've been in error, they've missed the mark, they've been off target, and all their wrongs in regard to all their missing the mark. And thus he is to put them on the head of the goat and send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a man standing ready. The goat is to bear on itself all their iniquities into an inaccessible land. So he is to send the goat away into the wilderness. I'm going to look at something really quick. That was 16, 21, and 22. And I am going to look at 16:21. And when it says, where was I? When it says a man standing ready, the Hebrew says a man of opportunity. Okay? A man of opportunity. Which I think is very interesting. KJV has a fit man. NIV has man appointed for the task. NASB has man who stands in readiness. So a man who's ready for the task. So he confesses over it all of the avon, which is the commonly known as iniquities. It's perversities, depravities, guilt, wrongdoing that people are guilty of. Sorry, I'm reading. For they're missing the mark. They're being off target. And he sends it into the wilderness by the hand of a man who is ready for it. Now, we know of a man who is ready to take all of the error and all of the depravity and perversities and missing the mark from us. There was a certain man that took all that himself, and he took it away. You might know who I'm talking about. Okay, let me go back. Where was I? Aharon must then enter the meeting tent and take off the linen garments which he had put on when he entered the sanctuary. So they were pure, clean garments that he put on just for this occasion, and then he took off. And leave them there. He has to leave them with the sanctuary. Then he must bathe his body in water in a separate place. And that's separate, it means it's separate from anything impure or wrong. Put on his clothes and go out and make his burnt offering and the people's offering. So he is to make covering on behalf of himself and the people. Then he is to offer up the fat of the missing the mark offering in smoke on the altar. And the one who sent the goat away to Azazel, complete removal, must wash his clothes, bathe his body in water, and afterward he may re-enter the camp. The bull of the missing the mark offering and the goat of the missing the mark offering, whose blood was brought to make covering in the separate place, must be brought outside the camp, and their hide, their flesh, and their dung must be burned up. And the one who burns them up must wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward he may re-enter the camp. This is to be a perpetual statute for you. Let me look at that perpetual really quick. Perpetual is olam, which means beyond the horizon. So it's a statute that is going beyond what is people can measure, beyond what they can see. It's time beyond knowing, okay? In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you must humble yourselves. And that humble, let me look at that really quick. You must humble yourselves. That's anah. And it means to be bowed down. Okay? That's important. Remember that. It means to be bowed down and do no work of any kind. So basically it's to bow down and submit. And it can be used in a sense that people are bowed down and submitted to their enemies, and their enemies are doing them harm. But it's not only that. It just means to submit, to be bowed down, to be humble, to not be too prideful. So you must submit and humble yourselves and do no work of any kind. So you're not doing anything on your own behalf. Both the native citizen and the foreigner who resides in your midst. For on this day covering is to be made for you to cleanse you from all your missing the mark. You must be clean before Yahweh. Very important, remember that. It is a Shabbat, a complete ceasing and resting, of complete rest for you. You must submit and humble yourselves. It is a statute going beyond the horizon, so farther than you can see, time beyond what you know of. And this is speaking to the Israelites way back in the day, thousands of years ago. The Cohen, or the community structure support, who is anointed and ordained to act as the high Cohen, the foremost community structure support, in place of his father, is to make covering. He is to put on the linen garments, the separate garments, and he is to purify the most separate place. He is to purify the meeting tent and the altar, and he is to make covering for the Kohanim, or the community structure supports, and for all the people of the assembly. This is to be an olam statute for you. So it's to be a perpetual. It's supposed to be a statute that goes beyond knowing. Okay, it's beyond the horizon, beyond what we can see. To make covering for the Israelites for all their missing the mark once a year. So he did just as Yahweh commanded Moshe. Okay. You know, there have people that go into that chapter and go into depth and all the meaning and symbolism and everything, and it's really worthwhile. I have not done that. I am not going to do that here, okay? But it's really, really worth doing. Let me look and see how I'm doing time-wise. Ooh, I'm running short on time. I'm going to have to do this in 2 parts. Okay, well, let me just do my next part. Bamidbar 29:7 through 11. And that is Numbers 29:7 through 11. On the 10th day of the 7th new moon, or renewed moon, you are to have a separate assembly. You must submit and humble yourselves. You must not do any work on it, but you must offer a burnt offering as a pleasing aroma to Yahweh. 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 lambs 1 year old, all of them without blemish, so they all have to be perfect. Their grain offering must be of finely ground flour mixed with olive oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and I'm not going to go into an ephah here, you can look it up, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs, along with 1 male goat for a purification offering, in addition to the purification offering for covering, and the continual burnt offering with its grain offering and their drink offerings. This is taking longer than I realized. Okay, where was I? Okay. You know what? I think I'm going to stop there for now, but don't miss the second part, because that's where I'm going to do a little bit more scripture reading, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in the second part. Happy Yom Kippurim, and thank you for watching, and I hope to, well, I won't see you. I hope you're back for the second half. Thank you. Shalom. Bon voyage. Sayonara. Bye.